Good afternoon or good morning. We are here to talk about second chance employers and why they matter. Thank you so much for this opportunity to be here with the Evolve HR first virtual summit, from what I understand. My name is Carol Peoples. I'm the founder and director of a nonprofit called Remerg. And we have Jim Schultz with Pretty Good Consulting, Cordelia Randall with CrossPurpose, and Joaquin Mobley with CommunityWorks. And you're going to learn a little bit more about all of us and why we do the work we do as we go through the next 30 minutes. So to get started, go to the next slide, please. I want to talk about what reentry to the community means. Remerg is a nonprofit that works in the area of reentry, and that is specifically helping people who are coming out of prison or jail as they come back to the community. And a couple things to remember, at least 95%, maybe as high as 97% of the people who are incarcerated come back to our communities. And so it is incumbent upon all of us to help people be successful upon reentry. And a big part of that picture is employment. So, people starting over need a job. They have a lot of things that they have to do, but one of the first ones is to get a job. And that's the role of where these community agencies really help out, that you're going to learn about today. There's a link between employment and recidivism. Recidivism is returning to incarceration, either for a technical violation of supervision or for a new crime. But there are several studies. One of them in 2015 found that the sooner people are employed after release, the less likely that they will go back to prison. And another one found that not just any job, but particularly stable jobs and meaningful employment also has a connection to recidivism. So just a little point, what are the numbers we're talking about here? There are 10,000 people who come out of Colorado's prisons every year, and tens of thousands who come out of our county jails every year. That's a lot of people that could use some help from employers. So what's the cost of failed reentry? And it's not just to them and their families and their communities. There are other costs. Illinois did a study and found that an incident of recidivism has a cumulative cost of over $150,000, one incident. Well, a lot of times we'll hear the cost of incarceration. It's $40,000 per person per year in Colorado state prisons. But another way to look at it is our Department of Corrections budget is over $1 billion a year, billion, and our county jail budgets are huge. Now, we have too many people who are going back, and recidivism is something we need to look at. Right now, we have about 48% recidivism rate for people going back to prison, and that's looking at a 3-year cohort. So let's say if they were released at 2015, and by 2018, you had 48% going back to prison. And that, as a business, you realize that's a super failure rate. And so Remerg looks to do a vision where the world doesn't send people back, where people are able to succeed after they're released from prison and are able to restart successfully. So we have a couple programs that we're developing. We have a very large resource website called remerg.com, where we post anything that we know of that will help people as they're starting over. We have just started a mentoring program for people who have been incarcerated to help them incubate their ideas that go on. We're collaborating with county jails and Department of Corrections, and we work on employer education efforts like this. So very, very glad to be here to talk today. I'm going to do an introduction to Jim Schultz next, above me on the panel. Jim, I've known for a number of different years. He is retired as the Division Vice President of Performance Development for Walgreens. He was there for 34 years, I believe. He was president of the Illinois Occupational Skills Standards and Credentialing Committee. He teaches graduate courses for the School of Labor and Employment Relations at the University of Illinois. He's the founder of Pretty Good Consulting, and he specializes in human capital strategy development. And he is the treasurer on my board of directors for Remerg. So take it away, Jim.
Whoa, thank you, Carol. My mother would have loved that intro. But I'm happy to be here. I used to be a Denverite, and having left Denver, I now find myself in Tucson, Arizona, which is much hotter. Anyway, yeah, when I was in Denver, I served on the Mile High SHRM board, and the co-SHRM board, and we really did some good things in terms of workforce development. But one of the things that I wanted to just give you as background today was the phrase you see on the screen, Tikkun Olam. That's a Jewish tradition, and it talks about repair of the world. And this quote, for those of you who might have a small screen, I'll read it for you. It says, "Do not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief. Do justly now. Love mercy now. Walk humbly now. You are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it." And that's a quote from the Talmud. And it really serves as kind of the foundation for my personal vision of what we're trying to do. There is so much wrong with the world. It's easy to sit back and complain about it and go, "Oh, woe is me." But the real challenge for us is to do something about it, something to make it better. And so that's how I'd like to position today's presentation for you. You as human resource people are the gatekeepers to the doors of the business world. And for too many years, we've just closed those doors to people who've had any involvement with the criminal system. And we can't do that. It's not the right thing to do. So I'm hopeful that you'll be able to take some of the ideas that you see here today and move forward with that. I had another phrase for you because I know you're all business people and businesses need to be concerned with the bottom line. But there's a phrase that's always stuck with me, is that you can't have a healthy business in a sick community. And this photo is one that's stuck with me over the years as well. This is a line of girls in a reformatory in California. And you just have to think about this. I mean, these are kids for the most part. They've made a mistake and screwed up, and now they're in the system. And unless we have a way to put them back into the real world of earning capacity, they're just kind of lost forever. And as that group of lost forever builds, it doesn't portend good things for the community as a whole. So those were, as a business person, I just wanted to leave you with those thoughts. And I'll turn it back to Carol to introduce Cordelia, because she's doing some very cool stuff.
So Cordelia Randall is, I know her as a community partner that I can call on at any time to help out, just like she's doing today. We did a reentry roundtable earlier this year, and Cordelia is a force of nature. She has 20 years of experience in the business development and community engagement. She is fabulous at connecting people to employers. She has a passion for community involvement and equal involvement for people. And she meets people with where they are in life and helps them to imagine a more marvelous tomorrow. And that's what I really admire about Cordelia. So Cordelia, you're on next.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here because I have a passion for this. When we talk about the formerly incarcerated, we forget about the millions of families impacted that do not have a role model, They do not have the income needed to keep them out of poverty. Now, I work for CrossPurpose, and we have this lofty goal of helping people to escape economic, relational, and spiritual poverty, because we find that there's a component of all that has to be addressed for our success. We have looked at the jobs that are usually offered for second chance citizens. We do not like those offers. What we found is when we deal with the person at the core of their being, we found that they will excel. And in our program, we have seen much success. We've seen people become legal secretaries to go on to become paralegals with felonies, people that traditionally would not have been hired. We have one gentleman now that has left incarceration approximately a year ago and is now hired by Reuters as a photojournalist, to capture on film some of the things that are going on in society. So when we talk about this, I talk about the well-being of the family and why it's important for employers to look at second chance citizens. Because when you're not looking at hiring an employee in there, you're probably hiring one of their family members or someone that's connected. We understand that in order for someone to be successful, they need to be embraced by society. They need to be able to make a living, to provide for housing, so forth. When we remove those things away from them, then they have to go back to find a way to survive. And that's why it doesn't work the way the system is meant to work now, and so many people go back. 48%, that would be a failure in a business structure. And so we need to relook at it, because we deal with approximately 28% of the people that we support through CrossPurpose have some type of felony background. Many of them now are even women, never spent a day in prison or jail, but they are labored by a felony. Sometimes it's because of a domestic violence event that occurred when their children were there. And so now they're locked out of key employment opportunities, such as in the medical field, in insurance and things that they could do well at if they didn't have that mark against us. At CrossPurpose, one of my passions is about removing that mark. How can we find other alternative ways of employment, that can allow people to live and breathe? We look at the entrepreneurial aspect. We host a pitch night once a year. Last year, we had 4 participants and raised $80,000 in the room. That sets people free, sets them free from their past and being held against them so they can go forward. We're looking at things such as sterile processing. We want to look at the way that Case Western did it in Ohio. The hospitals won't hire them because of the felony, but they'll hire and give a subcontract to a company that exists that can hire felons. We have to be creative right now in the way that we offer employees out there to society. But what I really want to think about and have people think about is the creative, brilliant minds that we serve, that have spent their time sometimes because no one else knew how to help them achieve their goals. And that's one of the things we seek to do at CrossPurpose, to take people that have lost vision, lost hope because they were in the wrong place at the wrong time, to take and re-energize that hope. If I had the time, I would talk about the many success stories of people that have spent 20 and 30 years in prison, come into a room, and all of a sudden we call our people leaders because they're leading their own way. And no one knows their background unless they disclose it. People that never thought that they would befriend someone from that background that has spent all that time, all of a sudden are amazed, are changed, because they come into the presence of an individual person and not into a number, not into what they've done in the past. We have to release powerful people and powerful minds. And the way we do that is by coming to the table with employers, showing what the real offerings look like, telling them how successful someone who is trying to be passionate about their future. They'll show up to work on time, they'll work harder, and they'll invest in creating more knowledge so they can be the best employee out there. So we all have a part in this.
And I just want to point out what Cordelia just expressed is what a community partner does. They are the ones that take people and get them to that place where they're ready for employment. Cordelia, you've got a couple minutes. Can you talk about CrossPurpose and what you guys do that's a benefit to the employers?
Yes, I do. You know, one of the number one things that is a problem for businesses right now is that people are being employed, but they don't have soft skills. They don't know how to have conflict resolution, conflict management, and they have found that EQ is more important than the IQ, because people can be upskilled, but you can't change that component of how they think. One of the things that happens in CrossPurpose, everyone who comes in must enter into what we call a personal development phase. You know, it is 6 weeks long. Many of these people have never taken an assessment. They do not know much about themselves. So we employ things like such as the parent assessment, the Enneagram. We try to find assessments that will allow people to tap into themselves, begin to actually self-identify who they are so that they can become a better worker. Along with that, we do digital literacy, because depending on where that person came from and what they had at home, they may never have touched a Mac computer. They never alone, you know, be able to go online, which is required nowadays virtually. And so we try to make sure that everybody's on the same platform with those skills. We give them those skills, as well as we go over correct grammar. We go over how to use Excel. And one of the big pieces that we do is called a pecha kucha. Well, what's a pecha kucha? A pecha kucha is basically a PowerPoint presentation that is timed, where each person gets to choose the topic. But most of all, they learn how to stand in front of their peers or a room of up to 100 and deliver an address about themselves. That's powerful, because what we find is we can give someone all the training in the world. We can upskill them backwards and forwards, but they have to be able to close the sale. And when they're in the room having an interview, they have to know about their own competencies and why they'd be a good pick. And so that's what we do for the people that we serve.
Thanks, Cordelia. And this is one of the reasons, you're why I love CrossPurpose.
I have to say one thing else too. We're a good return on investment, more than the GI Bill. The majority of the people that come in amongst us are on either SNAP, TANF, Medicaid, or relying on the system. We train people so they can get to a livable wage. By the time they leave us, right, we are counting the value. Right now we are past $7 million that we have relieved the system from and have created a new taxpayer base. Those people go home. They model to their families. They model to their children, and we are changing generational poverty one life at a time.
Thank you, Cordelia. So our next speaker is Joaquin, and Joaquin is the vice president of another wonderful community partner called CommunityWorks, and they have several different locations Joaquin will tell you about. He has at least 5 years of experience of doing this kind of work, of helping people who are trying to start over and getting a job and getting them the skills they need. But he also has a background in merchandising and the trades, and he's an entrepreneur. So Joaquin, I'm so glad that you could join us as well at the last minute, and we thank you so much. So take it away.
Thank you, Ms. Carroll, for having me. As Ms. Carroll mentioned before, I am Joaquin Mobley. I'm the vice president of CommunityWorks. I'm kind of new into this position in the sense that prior to me getting this opportunity, I never had the opportunity to be in a leadership position, high ranking as this. So I'm grateful for the opportunity once again to speak, and I'm grateful for CommunityWorks for giving me a shot to prove my leadership abilities. During my introduction, one thing that wasn't mentioned was the fact that I actually have been incarcerated. So everything that I'm about to present about is coming from empirical evidence, things that I've went through, and I've actually went through firsthand, seen and noticed what was wrong with the system as far as individuals making that transition from prison into the free world. So a little bit about CommunityWorks. Originally, we started out as DenverWorks. But due to our expansion, we chose to go with the name CommunityWorks. We chose to have a huge emphasis on the word community because this is what this is about, right? It's about having a community invest in its people that are returning back to their community so that we don't continue to make the same mistakes and going back in and out of prison. As Ms. Cordelia mentioned before, in Colorado, it's 48% as far as the individuals that are returning to prison, which is far too high. Some of the steps and some of the things that we've implemented within our organization has actually got our participants down to as low as 2% that return to prison, which isn't where we want to be. Obviously, we want to be at 0, but it's a huge difference between what the state has, which is 48%, and the 2%. Obviously, is a 46% difference. So some things that CommunityWorks provides that kind of distinguishes us with working with employers is the fact that we provide accountability. With our case management, our career empowerment coaches, I like to call them more than just case managers. I like to call them modern day alchemists. The reason why I call them that is because they make good people great. And the way they do that is by providing them with the reassurance, the confidence of their own abilities and their own competencies so that they can pull their own self up, right? And that's what it's really about. Also, when we work with employers, we provide supportive services. So we ensure the employers that we're working with that they're going to get there on time because we're going to help them have transportation. What that looks like is offering vouchers with Uber, Lyft, and or bus transportation. In our Denver metro area, we actually have a, I don't want to call it a trucking company or nothing like that, but it's a transportation company that we have in conjunction with some of the services that we have that actually get individuals to and from work. We provide housing vouchers. We know that's a huge part in keeping people employed and keeping them where they're at as far as giving them that reassurance that everything's going to be all right. If there's a situation to where there's a lapse in pay or you're just now getting out and you're more concerned about being able to pay for some of your housing, we assist with that. Small tools, we actually provide small tools. We've even provided big tools in some instances to get people on their feet, or if they have that entrepreneurial spirit, we actually got them the tools that they needed to succeed and be successful in that. We provide work gear. The work gear, whether it's boots, hard hats, vests, anything you can imagine that they need when they're entering into an industry or a work environment, we provide that. Professional clothing. We took a really unique position on this professional clothing. And what we did was we have closets at all of our locations. So whether it's Colorado Springs, Denver, Aurora, and our new baby, Atlanta, we have a professional clothing closet. So the individuals, once they're enrolled, if they have a job interview, they just completed training, we actually fit them with some professional clothing so that they can go out there feeling confident as well as dressed professionally to go ahead and interview for jobs. The next thing I want to talk about is the pathway to self-sufficiency. So aside from the training that we give you MRT and CBT activities. I am a facilitator of both MRT and CBT. And with that in mind, what we do is we give these individuals the tools that they need to cope, whether it's dealing with on-the-job issues or showing up on time, self-accountability, things like that. We provide them with all these tools so that they can be a better employee and overall be a better community member, right? The next thing is we provide an ecosystem of support. So what we were seeing a couple years ago is a lot of our individuals, participants that were coming through our program, once they left the facility or they got off a phone call with us, they were back in the real world, right? So, and what that looks like is being around a lot of toxic situations without an escape. So what we did was created a prosocial activities that take place in both our barbershops that we own, which is our point of entry, as well as creating leagues such as our cornhole leagues, just creating a whole bunch of places for individuals to go to when they want to, get out and socialize, but do so in a positive manner. So the prosocial activities is something huge that we do, which is our ecosystem of support. The training and skill building. So we are one of the industry leaders in pre-apprenticeship as well as apprenticeships, computer literacy. We do soft skill training. And something that's unique about our organization is that we created a quick and short pathway to receive these credentials. And on top of that, these credentials are industry recognized credentials. So once we give you a certificate, it's something that you can add to your resume as opposed to just saying, yeah, well, I took that kind of training, but you don't have nothing to show for it. So we have an actual certificate that's industry recognized here in the state of Colorado that individuals add to their resume, and they can actually use it as a platform or a pathway to get a job. We also have an actual apprenticeship that is part of the DOL and is federally recognized, and it's in construction craft laboring. And what that does is provide individuals who want to get involved in the asphalt world and potentially the cement world. It gives them a chance to earn while they learn. And on top of that, we did something unique. We added soft skills in our apprenticeship too. So in any program that we offer, and it's about 7 that we have, you're going to get a dose or a shot of soft skills, which is very important, as Mrs. Cordelia mentioned, when you're trying to get a job, right? Career opportunities. We've created what we call the hidden job market. The hidden job market allows for us to have that direct connection with employers, whether it's some of the businesses that we own as a staff or as an organization, or with some of our employer community partners, so that a lot of our individuals get an opportunity to compete. For some reason or another, a lot of employers that we ran to in the past, a couple of years ago, were kind of, standoffish about letting a lot of our participants get an opportunity to compete. But by providing the accountability, supportive services, and all the things I mentioned before, it kind of ensures that they're going to get, for lack of a better term, the best product or best person when they come through out of our program. After we polish them up, get them ready to go, and then on top of that, just giving them that continued support. Access. This is something I like to brag about now, if I can. We've created an app, right? And it's called the Community Anchor Academy app. And what we were noticing as before, that with the ecosystem of support, that once these individuals left from our facility, or we got off a phone call with them, that they were having to go back and deal with a lot of toxic environments. But what we did notice was that all of our participants are now engaged on some kind of social media platform. So we created an app to where that they can engage in our program 24/7. So they can do their training on there. We have a social media platform built in the app to where they can communicate with other participants on what they're doing that's successful and that's working. Also, they can post some of their projects and tasks that they completed via the program, and gives them a chance to brag and just make them feel good about themselves. Also on there, you can order your supportive services, you name it. Anything that you need is available via the app 24/7.
Okay, thank you. My goodness, we got 1 minute left. So I just want to use this minute real quick. Is there any cost to the employers, Cordelia and Joaquin? Is there any cost to the employers to work with you guys?
No.
That's what I thought. And you're on mute, but we saw what you said, Cordelia. That's the big deal. So this is just 2 of many, many organizations that are on remerge.com under community organizations. It's on jobs, community organizations. These are all organizations that help people who have been through the system and preparing them to work with you. Hey, I got to give a shout out to Denver Works because I got a few more seconds. Denver Works, the very beginning of, or Community Works, the very beginning of COVID, I got a call from a person in a halfway house. She said, I need help they didn't have computers there. I need help doing my resume. So first person I called was Aurora Works, right there at the top of my list. Guy picks up the phone. He's working from home. He says, have her give me a call. She eventually gets an offer of a $70,000 job in HR with her felony, and your guy answered the phone. And this was like 2 weeks in to COVID, and that was a really cool thing. So that's what everybody pulling together. That's what all of this happens. So also, one more thing on the next slide is you're all invited. We've been working with A.G. Weiser's office. So he's going to have an employer event later in 2020 to talk about second chance hiring and make sure that all of you guys get an invitation to this virtual event. And then finally, here's our contact information. If any of you want to talk to us, here it is. Thank you again for this opportunity to be here today and to share with you our passion for this kind of work.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carol. It was a pleasure to join you today.